So if you have chaplaincy, one of the cool things and hard things is you know they're doing stuff, but you don't get to know everything they're doing because there's confidentiality. So you don't know who they're talking to and what the conversation is unless the employee comes and tells you, hey, I talked to my chaplain and this happened. And so there's this mystery, this veil of confidentiality. So I asked them if they could give me some of the stories devoid of names. So I can't tell you which company, but these are all upstate South Carolina stories over the last 18 months, most of these being since COVID struck. One was a chaplain who had been visiting the same employee for 6 years who was resistant to him until he got a diagnosis this year. And he got to visit that employee in a hospital. That employee accepted Christ and asked the chaplain to facilitate his funeral, at which point he got to lead 3 of this employee's family members to Christ. That happened in May. Here in upstate, in the middle of COVID, a chaplain was driving by the warehouse of a member company he supports, and he just felt urged to swing by and see if anybody was working that day. Drove by the warehouse and saw a car at 6 a.m. early, walked in, the place was dark, but he saw a light in the back. So he shouted, hey, I'm the chaplain, I'm just here to see anybody here. He walked to the back of the warehouse and he found an employee sitting at a desk with a handgun in front of him. And he walked up to the employee and he said, what's the gun for? And he said, well, if you hadn't interrupted me, that was to help me deal with my situation. So he was planning to commit suicide that day as his crew showed up. He felt like there was no hope. He saw his world ending, COVID wrecking his life, and he was prepared to take his life. But God prompted that chaplain to show up that day, to walk in at just the right time, help him not make that decision, go get help. Got a chance to lead that guy to Christ later that week. Another chaplain story here in upstate this year. Noticed one of the entry-level employees had not been there for a while. He was homesick. And he went, I've swung by a couple times, he's not been here. I'm going to call him at home and see if he's okay. Called him, found out that similarly, it was a low-wage employee, spouse had lost their job. They were out of food and weren't sure how they're going to make it. So the chaplain arranged to get them some food, got them some assistance, say, hey, can I come meet you? Found out that he also was contemplating suicide, didn't see any hope. He said, there's hope, we can help you with this. Got him resources, ended up leading him and his spouse to Christ. Another case, COVID, most of us had times we had to send our employees home or do virtual work or hybrid work or some sort of crazy work. Chaplain asked if he could call and check on an employee who had been virtual and no one really knew how they were doing. When he called and checked in on him and said, hey, just since you're not in the office, we'll make sure you're okay. He sensed something in the person's voice and so asked him, hey, how are you coping with stress? And the guy said, well, drinking a little bit. What comes to light is this person was a closet alcoholic, and his addiction was worsening and barreling down, and it had never been known at work. He ended up getting him checked into a rehab program. 56 days into his sobriety, life turned around. He got a chance to lead that guy to Christ. We have seen more salvations since COVID than ever before.